And you mentioned, not every dog fits every trainer and every style and all of that. And that's a very valid point. Not every dog will excel at every trainer's program or facility or their training methods. So you do need to kind of take that into consideration when you're choosing a trainer as well. Hey guys, Kat here from Standing Stone, and today I get the opportunity to talk with Ashley Wilson, who has her dog Rhed in for training with us. He's actually here for not only hunting training and obedience training, but also to prep for his NAVHDA natural ability test, which she is going to run him in. Ashley has actually already had Rhed at another trainer, and we want to take this opportunity to share what that experience was like, what she liked about it, what she didn't like about it, and what she learned from that experience, and how to educate yourself to pick the right trainer for you and your dog, and how to prioritize what your goals are so that you can pick the right place to send your dog. So follow along, listen in, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, Ashley, how are you today?
Hi, Kat. We're doing good here in Texas. Thank you.
Awesome. So I bet you would love an update on Rhed.
Do you have him there?
Yeah, I don't have him sitting here with me. He's in the kennel. He's actually probably in the middle of, well, he's probably finished with a let out and just getting ready for dinner about this time today. So, but he's doing really good. His WOA training, he's back in the field. He
Good.
loves to swim now, which not now,
I'm
but
so happy to see that.
swimming like a little fish. And then we'll be working on some tracking coming up and just finishing up all his training in order for you to come get him. So
Yes.
Anyway, so today I want to talk to you about how to pick a trainer and why you picked trainers and that whole process, because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with or don't know how to go about doing, is how to pick a trainer and who they should send their dog to. And you don't know what you don't know. So this is an opportunity to share with people your process of what you went through to first pick your first trainer, and then kind of what happened there and how that moved into your second trainer. So if you would like to share a little bit about how you went about picking your first trainer, and we're not naming names or going into any of those details.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to say that I knew nothing. This was all my husband's idea, but I got involved. I fell in love with a puppy and he became mine. So I didn't know much. And even, I guess I should back up and say that I knew a little bit thanks to you guys from watching your videos. So when we were first picking our first trainer, my number one thing was I wanted the trainer to be in close proximity so that I could learn and I could be involved. That was my number one criteria. And outside of that, I didn't know very much more at all. So that was kind of our starting place. We were a little limited in Texas. There were very few trainers here in particularly South Texas where we are. Texas is a big state. So I was looking for someone that I could drive to on the weekends. There were a few trainers that were specific to more labs for retrieving, but they didn't really have the experience with a GSP with what we have. And so we kind of went with our closest option that has worked with GSPs in the past. Our first GSP that we have, we bought from a trainer fully trained, ready to go. So this was all brand new to us. So that's kind of how we started out, was close proximity being the priority.
Gotcha. Okay. And when you went about and found, Googled or however you found this trainer that was within close proximity, I mean, everybody Googles things these days, right?
Yes.
So did you set up phone calls at all? Did you email? How did you go about phone call? Okay.
And
that's how you set up training.
We had some word of mouth. I didn't know anyone personally that had used this particular trainer, but just word of mouth. Oh, so-and-so in such and such area they work with, we've heard good things about them. And so we did have some word of mouth recommendations. There, in hindsight, they did not have a website. That wasn't incredibly important to me because I realized being in this field, a lot of it is word of mouth, and having a website is not always important to, especially the good old boys of Texas. So that wasn't a huge red flag to me. So it was more word of mouth, phone call, and how long is my dog going to be with you?
Okay. Gotcha. And what was the expectation at that point of how long Rhed was going to be at the trainer?
So the expectation was that they were going to do obedience training with him, and then they were going to have him ready to hunt. And at the time, that was the extent of my knowledge. I got him on the list when he was about 3 months old, and he was scheduled to go at 7 months old. And that was the extent. So as far as when it came to training prior to the 7-month point, I honestly followed y'all's videos, which were incredible. You just were a long ways away from me.
Yeah, from South Texas to where we're at.
Videos. From Rhed's report cards, I can tell that I did a really, really good job teaching him to sit. Maybe too good of a job. So I did just some basic things that were kind of all I knew to do at the time. And then I was really relying on that 7-month part to take my dog, have my dog for 2 to 3 months was the expectation, to do obedience, and him come back to us ready to hunt, which I have to point out that I've never been a bird hunter. So when I say this was all new to me, anybody out there that's listening, thinking that they would like to get into this and they don't know where to start, I was right there knowing absolutely nothing and just starting this process myself. So.
And sometimes that makes it even more difficult than, picking a trainer, is you don't even know what questions to necessarily ask as a, beginning dog owner, beginning hunting dog owner. So it's like, well, what should I even ask? Because I don't even truly know what I need my dog to know to be a hunting dog. And that's something
I was completely ignorant. And my husband, who I say got me into all of this, it was all his idea. He had never really done bird hunting either. It was all in the plan. And then some health issues and surgeries kind of set him back. So he has never really had the opportunity to learn as we had both expected. So we were kind of the blind leading the blind, and we were ignorant in the true sense of the word.
Yeah. And it is really hard to ask the right questions when you don't know what those are. And also, like I said, you might have Googled to find a trainer near you. And that's the same thing now. If you're going out to dinner and you Google restaurants, you're going to get so many different options. And how do you know if they're good? Do they have good reviews, 5-star reviews, 4.5-star review, things like that. So there's just so much information out there sometimes that you can become overwhelmed as well. So
you can. And not only that, what someone else's 5-star review may not be mine and your 5-star review. What I ultimately discovered I was looking for in a trainer is not necessarily what other people were looking for in a trainer. And in the long run, that ended up making a huge difference with our dog's training.
Exactly. And that was something that you had even, slightly mentioned earlier, is, you were looking at a couple different trainers that were close to you, but some of them primarily focused on labs. And with the retriever-based things, not necessarily the versatile upland hunting dog side of things. So even at that point, you did know, hey, I probably want to gear Rhed's training at a facility that is more experienced with versatile hunting dogs. So even knowing as little as you did, you knew enough that, hey, I probably should try and pick a trainer that's going to get me in the right direction. And you mentioned, not every dog fits every trainer and every style and all of that. And that's a very valid point. Not every dog will excel at every trainer's program or facility or their training methods. So you do need to kind of take that into consideration when you're choosing a trainer as well. So
Yes.
what were things, because obviously you went to another trainer and then Rhed is here with us now, so another trainer. What did you like? What didn't you like about the first training situation? Were there red flags or any issues specifically?
There were red flags, and and there were red flags for me, and there were red flags specific, and I'll make sure I clarify what things made me uneasy, and then what caused us to pull our dog. And those were two different things. There were red flags. There were things that made me uncomfortable. Just in this was my baby. Our dogs are indoor dogs. Rhed has never slept a night outside. In fact, the night before he went to training, he got a bath and he thoroughly enjoyed snuggling up in his bathrobe, compliments of Bark Box. So our dogs are very much so part of our family. The training atmosphere that we went to, and I did not, nor did my husband, we did not tour this facility prior to going, was an outdoor facility at the end of February. So when I say that my dog went through a complete drastic change in environment, it was dramatic. He went to living outside from a bathrobe one night to living outside with nothing but a barrel. And with, at the time when we dropped him off, there were only about 10 other dogs there. And it was a big change. South Texas, we don't get incredibly cold, but we did have some very cold snaps. I do know I did make sure and do enough homework to know that they had heaters to be able to turn on for the dogs to keep them warm if the temperature dropped down. And I trust that they did. So there were things that made me a little uncomfortable just in the environment itself, the outdoor kennels, the chain length separations. There were, I know for a fact that the dog that was right next to Rhed was a huge, massive looking dog. I learned after getting there that they also they provide kennel space for dogs. So it's not just hunting dogs of similar breed or similar purpose being there. So Rhed may not have cared about the huge black dog being next to him, but the huge black dog next to him scared even me. But it was just a complete change, a very big change for him. So it made me uneasy. And I felt like I was being a wimp. I had quite a few male colleagues and, people here in South Texas, oh, that baby's going to grow up to be a man. They're going to make a man out of him. But I was very uneasy with leaving him. And being a man, also, my husband was very uneasy leaving him. I mean, we both commented as we're leaving, and I have these big, huge crocodile tears coming down my eyes. He said, yeah, this isn't exactly what I expected. So we both kind of had this uneasy feeling, but both of us not really knowing. We thought, okay, plenty of dogs live like this. He will survive. He will do fine.
And like I keep coming back to, you don't know what you don't know. You hadn't necessarily toured the facility ahead of time or gone to see another facility. So you don't know if this is the standard.
We thought this was the standard.
Right.
I mean, aside from the fact that I have watched y'all's videos and my husband has picked at me that, if I had it my way, my dog and everything would be a little mini Standing Stone facility. So I did know that it was out there. It just didn't seem to be here. And again, with the primary goal being proximity, we were going with what we had available to us. So.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that though that was a red flag when you dropped him off, it wasn't the ultimate issue that ended up
Yeah.
pulling him from training.
Yeah. And I will say also a couple of red flags that will play into, and they became even more so red flags once I started educating myself, which came kind of after, but no vet records were requested. I knew that my dog was up to date on everything. And so I felt fairly safe with his well-being and knowing that he was fully vaccinated and everything possible done. I had taken his own food, trusting that they would transition him. That didn't happen though. So he had an abrupt change of food as well. We ultimately pulled Rhed. I went after 2 weeks to visit, to check on him. And it was at that point that the trainer had mentioned that he had been peeing in the barrel every night, which was a little upsetting to me just because Rhed was completely potty trained. So it wasn't like him to pee where he was sleeping. And the biggest thing is that he had lost a lot of weight. I brought him home with me that night. The trainer had okayed it, and my husband and I both were just kind of taken back after spending a little bit of time with him. He had nothing but liquid, almost water, diarrhea, stool. So at that point, I was concerned about Giardia or some worm or something. But he just was so skinny. So we chose, and I will say that at that point I reached out through Patreon to Ethan. Ethan was a tremendous resource to me. And one of the most commendable things is that he did not bash that trainer. He simply told me how things would be at Standing Stone. He told me what I should expect a dog's physique to look like after 2 weeks of training. Long story short, we pulled Rhed. It was not the right fit. And just for health reasons, we spent a couple of months just putting back on weight. He had lost about 15 pounds, and just getting him back healthy. We had some problems with resource guarding, aggression, where he would just sit and he would stare at his food bowl, just like he didn't want it to go anywhere. Don't take it from him, but he just wanted to make sure it was there. So we had a little bit of a setback. But that health reasons is ultimately the reason why we pulled him. And it was, as I explained to that trainer, it was not that my dog didn't fit there. It was not that he had an issue. It was more or less that, number one, it wasn't noticed. And number two, it wasn't communicated to us. We expected him to have an adjustment period. I can't say I expected it to be that extreme, but we would have expected communication, and that was the main thing.
Yeah, and definitely seeing your dog in that situation, that condition unexpectedly, no pre-warnings like, hey, Rhed's kind of got an upset stomach. He's been having some diarrhea. He's choosing really not to eat well, or he's not holding weight on the food he is eating. Any number of things just to give you a heads up and say,
yes,
letting you know that, hey, I'm also concerned about his physique, his body condition, to let you know that it's being communicated and that it's a concern for not only you, but for us as well. So yes, that is definitely something that would have been a red flag for me as well.
The biggest thing is that the trainer didn't notice, because when we talked to him. We didn't just pull Rhed and decide never to go back. We did try to open up those lines of communication, and his opinion was that Rhed was adjusting fine, and our opinion was something's not adding up here.
Right.
So that's how we ended up with Rhed getting pulled from the first trainer. Yes.
Okay. And a couple things just to hit on is, like you mentioned, the facility wasn't quite what you had expected, but you also didn't know necessarily what to expect. And yes, South Texas probably has different climates than Kansas, where we're at, or even obviously North Dakota or something further north. So I know that dogs and barrels outside isn't necessarily uncommon, but as you mentioned before, every training facility, every dog, every trainer has a different fit. So that was, a huge shock to Rhed's normal environment, normal expectation.
Yes.
He's like, "Where's my dog bed? Where's my bath towel?" So that would have been a big adjustment in and of itself. And truly, I wouldn't have expected a dog to make much progress as far as training goals with that drastic of an adjustment needing to be made either. So the fact that you didn't pull him because, he's not making all this great progress is important to note as well. It was based on other things.
I mean, on the contrary, the day that I went to see him, he was already out in the field when I got there. So I got to actually see him in the field. And he ignored me. Like, I was so excited to see him, and all he could care about was running this field and finding birds. I mean, he wasn't slowing down one bit. I mean, in the field, he was absolutely loving it. They did things a little different than you. And again, I'm trying to keep in mind kind of what my knowledge base was at that time and what my knowledge base is now, because it was a wake up call for me. But now I know that probably starting him on bird launchers and an e-collar was probably premature. We had a few little issues there that I didn't realize was issues until I started educating myself. Again, I was ignorant. But him in the field was not a problem. I mean, he was loving it. And that was one thing I did learn about these dogs, is that even when they are not healthy, they still have this drive, and they're
very resilient and
so
tough dogs, almost to the point where they will push themselves too hard. And we have to advocate for them in lots of different ways, whether, they're not holding weight or having, diarrhea, as well as if it's too hot to be working. When we're hunting our dogs early season and it's getting too warm, sometimes our dogs don't want to stop, and we have to say, "No, buddy, it's too hot. You need to stop." Yep. Yes. So, they're very tough. Yeah. They're very tough and resilient dogs. And they have a lot of heart and drive, and they want to work. So, the fact that he ignored you completely when you came to see him is not unexpected. Because
he was a little proud of him. I was, but then also my little pride, like, "Oh, you prefer to stay chasing that daggone pigeon over coming and seeing me. Okay, I see where I line up."
He was all business. He knew what he was out there to do. So, which is a good thing, because that means he really has that drive and desire to hunt. And then obviously, as you know, the ability to settle down and be a nice, sweet dog in the house. So,
yes.
So that was what decided you to take him out of training. And then you did, like you mentioned, some rehab, getting his weight back up, getting, diarrhea under control, and making sure that he was, in good physical condition before you chose to send him off to other training.
Yes.
When you went through the process of where am I going to send him next, based on your previous experience, I'm sure you had other factors you were thinking to ask about and wanting to confirm before you sent him somewhere else.
Yes.
What were those things specifically that you were now on your radar of things to even think about asking?
So, like I said, it was a wake-up call for me that I could not remain ignorant in how my dog was getting trained, what the training was supposed to be, what we should be expecting. I reached out for help. Whether you're a social media friend or not, there are quite an excellent resource when you're trying to network. So I did. I found a nice group on Facebook that was full of just women with bird dogs, and they became a great resource to me in educating me in recommending some books so that I could learn and I could teach myself. At the time, I couldn't even consider sending him off to another trainer. So I thought, I'll teach myself and I'll teach him. That's just how it's going to be. I think real life sets in and you realize that if you really want this dog to perform at its peak and you really want the best for the dog, unless that's your full-time job or unless you have a job that's different than mine, it's not realistic. So I had read a few books. I had then learned what I was expecting of my dog. I knew, number one, the environment that he was living in was important. I talked with quite a few trainers elsewhere in Texas that were still quite a distance, about 7-8 hours away. They all utilized outdoor kennels, which it was not a huge turnoff to me, but again, it wasn't making me kind of jump and say, yes, let's go. I requested pictures. If they didn't have Facebook or if they didn't have a website, I wanted to see what the environment looked like. I asked more questions about what the training program involved. How did they start? What was their opinion on launchers? What was their opinion on when to start using an e-collar? When do you put them in the field? What food do you feed? Do I transition my dog on food? Do you transition my dog on food? What's your vaccination policy? How does he get vaccines if he's there? The whole conversation completely changed. I went into more of an advocate for my dog mode, and just knowing how he was going to be living when I was not there.
Yeah, more of an interview with them.
Yes, as awkward as it made me feel, because you don't want to insult these trainers and you don't want to insult their program. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure they're very good for certain dogs. It just it wasn't for me. And my husband and I actually went and visited another fairly local trainer. And again, we just left with an uneasy feeling. And we had both been down that road. And so we know at this point, I might be a little overprotective, so I rely on him to be my check and balance. But if we both have that feeling, we've learned to go with it.
Yeah, you definitely have to trust your gut.
Yes, you do. You have to trust your gut. Some other things that I would ask people were, how many dogs do you keep at a time? How many dogs are you training at a time? How many trainers do you have, or do you do it completely? Sorry, Bailey wants to participate too. Because in hindsight, I learned that was very important. I forgot to mention when I went back to visit Rhed, when we dropped him off, there were about 10 dogs. When I went back to get him, there were about 30, barking non-stop. It was so loud. It was deafening. So how many dogs do you have became important. I also learned the stability of a program is very important. What we did not know at the time was our trainer and his partner were going through a business split. They were going their separate ways. So you ended up with one trainer trying to care for all of these dogs, and inevitably something was going to get missed. So the stability of a program, how long have you been doing this, was another key factor as well. So again, the whole thing shifted. Our expectations changed completely.
Yeah, and you finally knew what questions needed to be asked,
yes,
so that you could make sure that you were not only asking the right questions, but getting the right feel for where your dog would be
mm-hmm.
at. And that's something that I tell people that they need to do all the time, is have that communication and trust with whether it's their breeder or their trainer, because you are taking your dog, which is part of your family, mm-hmm. to be in their care in their facility, and you have to feel comfortable with that and have to trust that they're going to be getting the care and the training that they deserve and that you are paying for.
Yes, absolutely. So there were a few that I thought, okay, this could work out, and then I had still been following, because again I went into superwoman mode. I'm gonna teach my dog everything that he doesn't know and I don't know, and I'll just be honest with you, that doesn't really work very well, because if you're learning at the same time the dog is learning, you can't correct him in the moment because you don't know. I reached a point to where he would do something and I would think, I have no idea what to do with you now. I don't know what to do with you.
Exactly.
So it just wasn't working. So when it came down to it, my husband just said, if we're going to take the dog 8 hours, there's absolutely, and I do mean this as a compliment, there's absolutely no one that's going to live up to your standards. You might as well just take him all the way to Kansas. So honestly, at that point, our priorities shifted. Close proximity became further down on the list than knowing that, and knowing that our dog was going to be taken care of and he was going to be safe and he was going to get very good training. With that became the top priority, more so than me getting to go and see him frequently. So our priorities did change.
Yeah, because from where you're at, it's what, a 12, 15-hour drive?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So,
Yes.
which you made in your camper up here with Rhed and some family members. So it was a nice little road trip for you and your family.
It's not exactly something you can do every
on the weekend.
other weekend and try to participate in training with him. It's just
right.
It's not feasible.
So you were asking all the questions now, which included, what does my dog's day look like? What kind of training is he going to get? How many dogs do you have? How many employees or people taking care of him is there? What kind of facility do you have? Is vaccination protocol, and then also obviously meeting your goals and your expectations of can you accomplish these goals was important too to you. And then you just decided to, because you obviously didn't have an opportunity to tour our facility being at such a distance. So you just decided, and we had multiple phone calls, I remember, leading up to you making the final decision to send him for training.
And not only that, Patreon had been a huge resource. I had been following you guys for nearly a year. I followed your videos all the way through the whelping process of Rhed's mom to transition, the whole process with the puppies. And so I was familiar via that route with your facilities, with your own personal dogs, with how you viewed your dogs, how you treated your personal dogs. I was very familiar with your social media. I had watched for a year your dogs there in training. So I didn't need to come see if your facility was clean, because I had been looking at your facility for a year at that point.
Okay.
So that is what led to me saying, okay, I feel comfortable enough to trust them.
Okay.
So I guess it was about a year-long research. What ended up, me saying, yes, this is who I want to use.
Yeah, and you were taking all of that information in, not necessarily in the ultimate goal of sending Rhed to us for training, but just as an informational resource. Overall.
As in, I know nothing what I'm doing, and I am trying to learn as I go. So a tremendous resource is what you guys provide. But it ended up creating a client. So it gave me a very long insight to how you live with not just your personal dogs, but with your clients' dogs as well. So
yeah. Well, I really appreciate that. And that's what we've always wanted to do, is just create a resource to help educate people. And ultimately, if that relationship becomes a training client or a puppy buyer in the future, that's something that we love it when that happens, but it can't happen for everyone because some people can't travel halfway across the country, unfortunately. And also, we can only take so many dogs in for
So many
training at a
dogs.
time.
Yes.
Yes. So once Rhed came here, because he's still here for training, he's been here
Yes.
for what now? 2 months
2
approximately?
months. Yes.
Yeah. And you were able to come visit him, even though it was a complete disaster of travel because of flights, delays, all the things. But you were able to come squeak out a little quick visit to see him at about that 30-day mark.
Yes.
And he was overjoyed to see Mom, I can tell you that.
I think that's one of the things that you're afraid of. And for anyone that is afraid to send their dog because is my dog going to forget me, which I'm still worried about that by the time I see him in October. But no, Rhed did not forget me. So.
No. He wasn't as thrilled with his birthday gifts, other than the toy.
He was not. I don't think he realizes like how much effort I went to
get him all those little
gifts.
Treats. And he was like, meh, give me the stuffed cupcake. Yeah,
yes,
he was much more excited about that.
No, but yes, I was able to come see him. And again, just if you are, let's see, I might need to backtrack because one of the things that I wanted to bring out was a little bit important even before we got to when I came and visited at 30 days. When I came to drop him off, it was not a meet me at the door and take my dog and put my dog in a kennel. That was our first experience. When we first went to our first trainer, we got there, talked maybe 5-10 minutes, and then took Rhed and put him in a chain length kennel with his barrel. And then we were expected to turn around and leave. And it was very difficult. It was very hard. When I brought Rhed for drop off at Standing Stone, it was a completely different experience. I think you guys ended up spending, and I don't know if you do this with all your clients or just the ones that you can tell are absolutely terrified, but you ended up spending about an hour and a half or more with me. We gave Rhed time outside to go to the bathroom. We gave him time just with us, me, you, and Jess outside with him to roam the yard. We gave him time inside the training room, inside the office to get familiar with the scents and just being around y'all. And it was about a couple hour process for him to kind of familiarize himself, not just with the facility, but with y'all. And so that was one thing that I did notice, that drop off was completely different. It was not an abrupt change. It gave both owner and dog a chance to acclimate. In fact, Rhed laid down and took a nap before I left.
Yes, he did. He got bored with it.
Yeah, that's how at ease he was. So I'd like to make that differentiation as well for anyone that is thinking of what to expect.
And I don't want to say, oh, you're special or you're not special. Our typical drop off is 1 to 2 hours.
Okay.
So, we want to
I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah, we want to make sure
important
that the dogs are comfortable here, not just a rushed situation, which is also why I typically like to schedule my drop-offs before noon, because that allows the dog to have an additional, 8-9 hours to get acclimated to the routine of the day, the other dogs, the other trainers, the handlers, before it's sleep overnight in the dark in this new environment and then just rush that situation. So my preference is before noon drop-offs for that reason. It doesn't always work with people's schedules, but we, try and accommodate that as best we can. And then time to go over your training goals, make sure we've got all of your contact information. That's always something that we want to confirm, those shot records, monthly medication, all of that is part of that process, as well as, let the dog settle in a little bit.
Yes. And I'll point out another difference is we had discussed beforehand, and we had developed a plan given Rhed's history, and I'm sure any of your other dogs coming in. We had already spent a month transitioning Rhed's diet, so there was no abrupt change in food to further upset stomach, GI system. Rhed was already quite accustomed to the food prior to coming there. And that's all good things. That's all things that I've learned that a good trainer will want for their dogs. They don't want a dog coming into a new environment and having to deal with, which I know if I had not transitioned him, you would have transitioned him. But a good trainer is not going to want a dog to have to go through an adjustment period and then cold turkey change dog food as well.
Yeah.
So that was something that was important to me after my first learning experience. And you guys checked that box as well. You checked the box of wanting his vet records. You checked the box of wanting to know when his what he was on for heartworms. You weren't just going to be giving every single dog a shot of ivermectin on the first of every month. You were going to maintain his flea and tick medicine. So all of those things were, whether you know it or not, but it was things that I was looking for, and you guys checked all those boxes. So.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. And the food thing. So that is something that some people just want us to switch their dogs cold turkey. They don't bring anything. The food that we feed usually transitions really well. We feed Eukanuba, and dogs don't typically struggle with that. Some clients want their dogs to stay on dog food the entire time that they're here for training. So they will bring a bag of food and then ship us food as needed if they want them staying on, a specific food or formula of food. So we make accommodations that way if, our clients want a specific food or a transition period. And we customize our goals for their training because Rhed's also in for preparation for his NAVDA natural ability tests. So we're, checking those boxes for preparation as well, from, exposure to tracking and water, and then the field stuff, as well as to be able to go hunting with you for the first time when he goes back home. So I think I saw something about you getting a new shotgun even.
Yes,
so this is all awesome. You're getting all the pieces in place.
I'm getting all the pieces in place for this dog. Yes.
I always tell people, whatever you spend on your puppy is the least amount of money you'll ever spend on that dog, because you buy the dog, and then you've got the training and the vet, and then the shotguns and the hunting trips and all the things. They just add up, but they're a very good investment.
It's a very worthwhile investment. Yes.
One thing that I wanted to mention is we put a lot of emphasis on communication with our clients. And I know that you really appreciate that, because I see you sharing posts and stuff all the time. On social media, we post little stories and videos and pictures of the dogs while they're here in training. So their owners, who happen to be 15 hours away and missing them, get to at least see a little glimpse of them while they're gone. And then we send out weekly report cards as well, so that our clients know what we're working on. If we are struggling with anything, we're transparent about that. Anything that we're excelling at, because everyone likes to know their dog's doing a great job. And then our plans for their, next week's worth of training. And we've found that has been something that a lot of our clients really, really enjoys, those weekly report cards, to be appraised of how their dog's doing in training. If we're falling short of those training goals, we can, let them know that. Or if we're excelling at them and moving faster, it allows us to say, hey, we're probably going to be ready for, pick up earlier, or, hey, we might even be able to touch on some more advanced goals for you. So
yes, those are all very important things. Also, just knowing that their health is being monitored as well. I know you guys send me on report cards. Occasionally I'll get weight checks, especially when he was first there, so that you were honest with me about Rhed decided not to eat this morning or tonight, but he ate a little bit today, and that was his first 2 days in going there. So I think honest communication. Because one of the things that I had received previously was, Rhed's doing great, period. How's Rhed? Rhed's good, period. And I have to say that from that first night after I left Rhed there, your honest communication and let me know that he really was doing okay, because it wasn't just a blanket, tell me what I want to hear. You were very honest with me. He chose not to eat last night, but he's eating a little bit this morning. And then the weights on report card, given what we had been through, it was particularly good to see that I could see that he did lose a couple of pounds. No big deal. That's fine. And then the very next week, he had picked back up and almost had gained all of that weight back within a week. So I think it's honest communication. It's not just telling the client what they want to hear, but it's giving them
or a
like
generic blanket statement. Oh, everybody's good.
What's not going well? Like you said, what are they struggling with? How are we working on this? And I think that builds trust with the client. And knowing what I know now, it's very important to know what your dog is dealing with. So not just a generic.
Yeah. And I want to make a statement about eating with dogs because, Rhed obviously had a bad experience about his weight. And even when he came here for the first couple of days, he was a little off eating. Mm-hmm. He didn't eat his full meals completely easily. And that is not uncommon. So if you're sending your dog off for training and your trainer says, hey, your dog didn't eat today, don't pull the plug and be like, I've got to go get my dog. They're going to starve to death. That is not the case. First of all, there's very few dogs out there that will literally starve themselves to death, right? That's not going to happen. They have survival instincts, but we definitely don't want it to get to that point where they're, losing 15 pounds or 14 pounds in a few weeks. We expect a dog might take a couple days to get back on eating consistently. Because it is, even with an indoor facility like we have that's climate controlled and very, set up as much like a house, dogs get to go out, socialize as we can. It's still new. It's still different. Mm-hmm. And they've got new dogs that they're, getting used to, new people they're getting used to, and they may be overwhelmed and not want to eat. In the next day or two, that's going to change. So just be understanding of that in general, dog behavior.
Yes, I think that would be, I would expect that. That would be a expectation. Some people may not, but I expected that. Ours just kind of boiled down to communication.
Yeah. And also, if you are having a struggle or your dog's not making the progress that you were hoping in training, I think that it's good to have that communication with your trainer to know what their plan is to make progress. We're struggling with this. Well, what's our plan to make progress with that? Or, what are we going to try next to make progress in that area? If we're seeing a dog that's lacking retrieving desire, what's our goals? What's our plans for that? Not just here, we're struggling with this, but we're not going to tell you how we're planning on fixing it, right?
Doing about it.
Yeah, exactly. So having that open communication, like you said, I think not only is good, but I think clients appreciate.
It builds trust, and I think that's key when you are taking care of someone else's. I mean, they're like our family members. So, but,
yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned our drop-off process a little bit because you've experienced that. And also, you got to visit for a short amount of time. It was shorter than originally expected because of flight delays.
I had hoped to be able to be there and kind of be a part of his morning training session. I got there at nap time.
And hot time because we had crazy hot summer weather.
So I didn't get to do all that with him. But it was still good to be able to come back and see him. And after he got over his very initial excitement of seeing mom and loving on mom and what do you have in the bag? I don't like that. I don't like that. Give me this. I was able to see his interaction with all of you. And that was very important to me. I saw how he would go to you, Jess, and Ethan just as easily as he would come to me. I saw how how when he did approach you, and Jess, you two may have been in the middle of a sentence with me, but without missing a beat and completely natural. When he would come up to you, you guys would reach down and give him a little love on the head. So all of those things let me see that my dog had been interacting with y'all and was familiar with y'all. He was not being kept in a kennel, only taken out when it was time for a bird to shoot out of a launcher and then shoved back in a kennel. You've been interacting with him. When I saw Ethan walk in and start to play fetch with him with his birthday gift, and Rhed just naturally went to him, those were all things that showed me that you are treating him like you would your own. And him responding to you let me see that he had been being treated like that in my absence as well. So
it wasn't just it
wasn't a show. No. If it was a show, he would have just stuck with me, and he would not have easily and naturally gone to you guys for attention and affection just like he was me. No, it was definitely not a show.
Well, because you haven't experienced a send home yet, because he's still here with us for training.
Still there.
I'm going to just share a little bit about what that process is going to look like. I think we have talked about it already before, because you're picking him up and then spending some time, and then he's going to go run his NAVHDA natural ability test, and you're going to handle him. So typically our send home process, fingers crossed that it all goes good, but dogs, unpredictable situations, all that, but mom days, which is why you're going to come and spend some time and not just pick him up and try and go take him and handle him the next day. But that process is, even if you weren't picking him up to go run him at a natural ability test, we're going to take time. It's typically a few hours, and some clients spend a few hours one day and then a few hours the next day, which is kind of what we're looking at doing when you pick him up, so that we can make sure that you are truly comfortable handling all of the training, not just watching us demo it, because we're professional trainers and handlers. So we make it look easy. That's our job, right? To do this. So we want somebody that's not a professional, that's just, a mom of their dog, to be able to say, okay, Rhed, I want you to kennel, I want you to heel, and I want you to do those for me, as well as you're doing it for, Jess or Kat or Tessa. And then we want to show you all the field work and then have you handle that. As well as, because you're running him through a natural ability test, we're going to set up a mock test where, hey, this is what we're going to do in the field. This is how the test is going to go, so you feel comfortable. Same with, we're going to put him on a track. Hey, this is how you need to release him at the track. This is how you need to do his water work for his water portion of the test, to go through all those pieces. So that he's going to handle for you, and you're going to feel comfortable and confident when it's time to run him. So that's what our typical send homes look like. And we spend as much time as necessary. I always tell people, if you have your own e-collar, bring it with you so that you can handle with the system you're going to be using and feel comfortable with. If you plan on getting an e-collar from us, we'll have one here ready for you, so that you're going to use and handle with the collar you're going to go home with and be using at home. So those are things that we want to go over. We send home a cue sheet so that everything he's learned is on a piece of paper that says the cue and how we utilize the collar and reinforce that behavior, so that when all of the information that we've just thrown at you goes in one ear and out the other, you can go, oh, at least it's written down and I can take this home with me.
And I think just to, and I know we've been talking for a little while, but just to tag on to what you said about prepping him and getting him prepared for his NAVHDA test, and me as well. When you're looking for a trainer, I now know it's also important to know what your plans are with the dog, because not every bird dog is going to be, and not every owner, and majority of our friends that have bird dogs, they don't care whether the dog ever runs in any type of hunt test or any field trials or anything like that. So I think it's important to know, if you do have that in mind, to know that the trainers you're sending your dog to is familiar with that, and they know what they need to be training. So yes, and that also was a perk, because I later learned what NAVHDA was, and realized, hey, I have an interest in this. So knowing that you guys were very familiar with NAVDA, then that also played a role because you knew what my goals were and you were able to help me obtain those. If I took Rhed to a trainer that did no tracking work, well, we're not really going to do very good on that test. If I took him to someone who just focused on upland and did not focus on just field work and didn't focus on the water aspect. So all of that, those were things that I was looking for the second time around, kind of knowing more about what I was expecting.
Yeah, and we don't have experience in all of the different areas of testing. We're experienced with running through AKC,
Yes.
Tests, hunt tests, and the NAVDA hunt tests. But if you brought me your dog, or you talked to me about bringing me your dog that you wanted to run off horseback field trials, I would say, hey, there are other trainers out there that are going to do a better job of that, because we don't have experience in that area, and I don't want to overpromise something that I can't do because I don't have the experience or the knowledge to do that. So,
and that goes back to finding a trainer that can work with what your expectations are. Like the retriever trainers here locally, that was not the specialty. So, finding a trainer that fits what you're looking for is important. So,
yes. And one little tidbit that I just have to throw out here is, and I have to ask because I don't remember the order of how this went about, is did you find out that you have friends or colleagues that have bought a couple dogs from us now, puppies, and sent one of them back to us for multiple rounds of training before or after you sent Rhed here?
It was after I had already, put down the deposit.
Okay.
To bring him. We were in the lounge at work talking, and he said, why don't you just send him to Standing Stone? And it was like, why haven't we had this conversation before? So we now have a lot of conversation. And we, Nikki and I, both stalk your social media. And if one's dog is on social media more than the other, we are texting about it.
Oh, it's a competition. Uh-oh. Because they're both actually here.
It was this validation of knowing, oh my goodness. So these people I've been watching for a whole year and who are now going to take my dog. Okay, so it brought another layer of comfort in knowing that they had used you guys before and had been very, very pleased. And it's one thing, and I'll say, if you were someone looking for a trainer, if you are able to, like I said, I observed for nearly a year. But it's one thing that myself and they commented on was how happy all of the dogs seem. And it has been a learning point for me to realize that you can have it all. You can have a dog that you love immensely, that is happy to work for you, to point for you, to retrieve for you, to cuddle with you, to be your family companion and your hunting companion. It is okay to have all of that. The dog does not have to be broke, and they can still enjoy what they're doing, and they can be trained in a way that they absolutely love it. So that's something that he and I, that we have commented on in watching your dogs.
Absolutely. And we actually have both Wave and Rhed in for training simultaneously right now. Red's going to be here a little bit longer because Wave's just in for a tune-up before season. And she's been here for training before. And she actually goes home next weekend.
I know when she goes home. Trust me, I've heard.
I'm sure they'll ask to get a picture or take a video or something of Rhed when they come up as well. So we'll make sure to get you that for them with them up here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about all of this. I think that the biggest takeaway is just to educate yourself.
Absolutely.
Figure out what your purpose is for training, and make sure you ask plenty of questions, and that you can trust and have open communication with the trainer you choose. And you have to decide what your priorities are. If location ultimately was your initial priority and you made adjustments on those priorities to get something else after you realized what was missing. You just have to decide what those true priorities are for you. And not every trainer is going to be right for every dog. And so finding the one that fits you and your dog and what you're looking to accomplish is what we can take away from this. Not that every dog has to come to Standing Stone for training, because
No,
like I mentioned, we might not be the
not,
right trainer for everyone.
It may not be, but just kind of knowing that it is okay to have expectations. And it's okay to go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's not, just don't do it. Go with your gut. And I would say for the women specifically, it is okay to expect your dog to be loved on. That just because they are hunting dogs does not, I mean, I have never seen more affectionate, craving dogs in my life. And it's okay to expect that for your dog when they're at training as well. And it does not mean that they're a sissy baby dog that I have heard repeatedly about my dogs. It's okay.
Well, they're not just tools. They're not just tools. They're part of the family, that they do have a job and a purpose, and they love their job and purpose. So let's train them to do the best job that they can.
And to love it.
Yes, exactly. So, well, thank you again, Ashley, so much for being on our podcast with me today. It's always enjoyable to talk to you, and we could probably talk for much more time, but we'll cut it short.
It makes me feel closer to Rhed.
And I will make sure that he gets a post tonight so that you get a chance to see him. If he hasn't on, I'll have to check the story and see where he's at, but he'll get another post either way tonight. Okay.
All right. That's a good thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And we will be back talking about Rhed when you get to pick him up in just over a month.
Yes. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Kat.
Thank you.